Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And for all my continued followers, I want to say thank you. And this is an opinion-based video channel where I try to open your eyes and ears up to some of the travails and tribulations that take place throughout our cities, our states, our country, and sometimes around the world. And this story I have for you is coming straight out of Texas, the state of Texas. And you haven't heard, this is a pretty big story that the national media has kind of suppressed and has not said a whole lot about. And this story gives a little bit of a dark eye to President Trump's administration. And this has to do with former President Donald Trump's spiritual advisor and Texas megachurch pastor, Robert Morris, who pled guilty to child sex abuse charges. So this is a big one. This is one of Donald Trump's past spiritual advisors. And look at the dichotomy and the hypocrisy in this situation, where this man was the head of a megachurch in Texas, where you know there are a lot of megachurches in Texas, and he's supposed to be a helper and a healer. And he has allegedly, secretly and behind closed doors and in the dark, committed a heinous crime against a young child, female child, back in the 80s. This case goes all the way back, or the charges or the allegations go all the way back to the 80s. And he just recently pled guilty to these terrible charges against a child. And so since this story, with viewer discretion being advised, let's talk a little bit about the registered sex offender platform, so to speak. There are over 800,000 registered sex offenders in the United States, almost 1 million. Texas has the most offenders, with at least 95,000 registered offenders. Florida is number 2 with 86,000 registered offenders, and California has over 60,615 offenders on the registry. So that just gives you an idea for those who are wondering what are the top 3 states. We're talking about Texas, Florida, and California, with the largest numbers of offenders on the registry. So let's get into the story about what took place with the founder of a Texas megachurch who resigned last year after a woman in Oklahoma accused the pastor of sexually abusing her in the 1980s, pleaded guilty recently to 5 counts of lewd and indecent acts with a child, authorities said. Robert Preston Moore, 64, entered the plea before a judge in Oklahoma's Osage County as part of a plea agreement, according to the state attorney general's office. The alleged abuse began in 1982 when the victim was 12 years old. And Morris was a traveling evangelist staying in Hominy, Oklahoma, with her family, according to the statement by Oklahoma Attorney General Gentner Drummond. The abuse allegedly continued for 4 years. And I'm sure this pastor at 64 years old did not want this to ever come out if he did commit this alleged crime. This goes all the way back to the 1980s. Pastor Morris, the senior pastor of Gateway Church in South Lake, Texas, until his resignation, was indicted by an Oklahoma grand jury last year. Under the plea agreement, Pastor Morris received a 10-year suspended sentence with the first 6 months to be served in the Osage County Jail. The victim, Cindy Clemenshire, who is now 55, said in a statement that justice has finally been served, and the man who manipulated, groomed, and abused me as a 12-year-old innocent girl is finally going to be behind bars. So he has a 9-year age gap between her. So if you do the math, when she was 12, he was like 21. The Associated Press typically does not name people who say that they have been essayed unless they come forward publicly, as Clemenshire has done. She said, my hope is that many victims hear my story and it can help lift their shame and allow them to speak up, she said. I hope that laws continue to change and new ones are written so the children and victims' rights are better protected. I hope that people understand the only way to stop child essay abuse is to speak up when it happens or it is suspected. A message seeking comment left at Gateway Church's administrative offices in Southlake, Texas, were not immediately returned. Pastor Morris must also register as a sex offender and will be supervised by Texas authorities via interstate compact. Pastor Morris was also ordered to pay his costs of incarceration, including any medical expenses and restitution to the victim. A message left for one of Morris's attorneys, Mac Martin of Oklahoma City, was not immediately returned. And here where it gets interesting about his relationship with President Trump. Gateway Church was founded by Morris in 2000. He has been politically active and formally served on President Donald Trump's Evangelical Advisory Board. The church hosted Trump on its Dallas campus in 2020 for a discussion on race relations and the economy. The pleas were entered before Osage County District Special Judge Cindy Pickerill. They said there can be no tolerance for those who prey on children. Drummond said this case is all the more despicable because the perpetrator was a pastor who exploited his position of trust and authority. The victim in this case has waited far too many years for this day. So that's a very unfortunate and sad story. Here again, Pastor Morris at that time allegedly was around 21. The young lady or the child was 12. They said went on for 4 years up until she was 16. That would put him at 24, 25. He went on to have and garner this major mega church in Texas. And I'm sure if these allegations are true, that he wanted to keep that situation back in the 80s suppressed forever. And those things that happen in the dark will come to light. I tell you all the time, the unseen will become seen and the unbelievable will become believable in the days of treachery and immorality that we live in today. And you have to remember that the dichotomy and the hypocrisy here, this is a pastor who is supposed to be preaching, helping and healing and finding a funnel and a tutelage, having a relationship with God and doing good things. And allegedly, he acted in a devilish way all the way back into the 1980s. It gets exposed by this lady, and he ends up pleading guilty to several abuse charges. Also, for you, so that you'll know, statistically, what does the average makeup of an offender looks like? Typically is a white male in their 50s that is generally the perpetrator of these kinds of assaults, even though anybody can do it, male, female, black, white. But statistically, the average person is a white male in their 50s with these kind of abuse allegations. This is a very unfortunate story. You haven't heard hardly anything in the national news or social media about it. I came across it and I thought that with this gentleman having a mega church in Texas, that in Southlake, that He eventually resigned. These allegations came to light, and Robert Preston Morris, who's 64, entered the plea. He pleaded guilty to these accounts, and now he is going to be on the state and the national registry as an offender. What an unfortunate circumstance, especially for the victim, Cindy Clemenshire, and her family, and the embarrassment that Pastor Morris has placed on his own family also needs to be mentioned. This is an unfortunate situation for two families in particular, and hopefully there are not any other victims in Pastor Robert Preston Morris's past that would give these allegations or say that he abused anyone else. Tell me what you think about former President Donald Trump's spiritual advisor and Texas megachurch pastor Robert Preston Morris, who pled guilty to these child abuse charges. It's unfortunate. If these allegations are true, then Miss Clemenshire had her day in court, and hopefully she can get some relief. But definitely, she hopefully has been through psychological therapy, mental, physical therapy, and can restore her life in a positive fashion. Tell me what you think. This has been the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth.